Hey guys, in today's video, I want to share a episode of a show that I was recently a guest on. These guys are located over in the UK, and in case you don't know me, I'm located in the US. And so we had a pretty good conversation about the heating and air industry, the differences in our two countries, and also the future of our industry in our two countries. So I hope you enjoy. Before we get to that video, please take a moment. I'll put a link down in the description to their YouTube channel called The Outspoken Engineer. Give those guys a subscribe. They are doing a lot of cool things. But with no further delay, here is that show.
The Outspoken Engineer, Episode 3, Season 1. The UK versus the United States of America. It's begun. Mitsubishi Electric versus Daikin overseas. The industry, the changes. What's going to happen in the next 5 years? Sit back and enjoy, because this has taken some work to get over the line. Like, subscribe, and we hope to hear from you soon. Let's jump into it. Joshua Griffin, you're the owner of the HVAC Guide for Homeowners, which is a YouTube channel. We've touched on some of your videos. Could you just give a brief rundown on what the purpose of your YouTube channel is and what you offer homeowners and people in our industry?
Sure. So I do own a small heating and air business, and I started doing YouTube on the side just as a place to, kind of have a soapbox, if you will, to a place that, when you're in someone's home and you're trying to sell them something, they know that you're trying to sell them something and their guard is up. So as it became a place that guard is down, I can be on my soapbox, if you will, and share things with the homeowner that I think should affect their decision. And it morphed into, as time went on, into something on its own, something that turned into a place that we are starting to help homeowners elsewhere as well. People that are not necessarily a customer of my heating and air business, but folks that, I don't know how it is over there, but over here, the heating and air trade has really gotten a little bit of a bad reputation. It's become the trade where guys will kind of get into it and maybe they'll kind of lie a little bit at times to sell something or whatever. There's all kinds of reputation dings that it's taken. And so our channel, the whole goal has become, instead of a place where there's tons of YouTube channels, I'm sure you guys have seen that there are heating and air guys sharing information with other heating and air guys, but I didn't see many out there that were sharing information with the homeowners directly. And especially information that a lot of these guys want to stay a secret. So that kind of, that's been what it's become. It's become a place where I share information that maybe...
Did you find, Josh, that when you were doing visits to clients and you would install equipment into people's houses, you had a rhetorical question, or the same questions coming up? How things are used, how do you use a controller, why is this not working? And then it got to the point where you said, well, actually, I could pick this up in a video.
Oh, yeah, that happens all the time. I'm sure you guys have probably the same 5 to 10 things that feels like you say to every single customer when you go in their home or business. And so should we go for a couple of those? Because I think, let's see if the UK and the US have similarities. So, number one, going from the autumn to the winter, do you have defrost questions? Why have my unit switched off and there's a delay in heating? Is that one? I don't necessarily get it worded that way, but we will get folks call in and say, hey, my unit is making a funny noise, or hey, it's steaming. So that heat pump's gone into defrost mode and the unit is literally steaming and it scares them, and we'll get those questions from time to time.
Gotcha. Wi-Fi. I've changed my router and my Wi-Fi is no longer working on my computer. On my phone. How can I reconnect this?
Oh yeah, we get those questions all the time.
Musty smells. Have you had the musty smell one?
Yeah, we get all kinds of odor smell questions, whether it's the musty smell. I'm not sure what y'all call it over there, but we have something here called the dirty sock syndrome.
Okay,
and,
elaborate.
It's an odor that so it's an odor that evaporator coils will sometimes make, and essentially it smells like dirty socks, and sometimes we'll get those questions.
You're so much more more polite than us.
My first ever video that ever took off on our YouTube channel was literally called "What to Do About the Dirty Sock Syndrome." 3 things you can do.
So, just to elaborate on the dirty sock syndrome in America, is the dirty sock syndrome where the evaporator has contained moisture and the unit then fires back up, and you then have an odour, a musty smell, which you call dirty socks. In the UK, we call it cat's pee because it smells like cat's pee. I did say
yes,
you're a bit more polite.
That's exactly right.
Cat's pee. That's really interesting. Really interesting. So, okay. Have you got any other to add to that? I can't really think of any now. That's taken me adrift.
Well, we have folks from time to time that, again, it feels like I'm saying the same thing again. It's to the customer, it's new, but to me, it's the same thing, different face every day. And, so we get those folks that, they'll say they're replacing their air filter from time to time. Like they say they are, but, the writing's on the wall, right?
For sure.
You can see that they're not.
For sure.
But, like you touched on the defrost mode, there are sometimes when we have to explain to the homeowner how certain things work, such as, not so much today, but, in the last 5 to 10 years, we saw folks the whole variable speed thing and having to explain to them, hey, your system's working fine. It's just at a lower speed now. So just trying to educate customers. I think as time goes on, people, start to you get the questions less and less because more and more folks start to learn. Mini splits, ductless mini splits, when they first started coming out, and the fact that they ramp up and down, and the fact that they are inverter systems and things like that. People 10 years ago that, they never thought we would see a day that you could heat and cool an entire home with these small little mini splits. And now it's almost becoming the norm in some markets.
Well, let's come off of the back of that then. So when I look at the States over the past 10, 15, 20 years, and I look at a new build house in the States, I've always been led to believe, my girlfriend's parents live in Philadelphia, and they have a HVAC system, which they call a furnace. And I've always been led to believe you have a basement with an air handling unit, AHU, with a big fan, a heating coil from a boiler, and then you have a DX coil from a fridge unit, and the outdoor unit looks like a dustbin, or a dustbin with a fan at the top. In the UK, we've never had that. Is that correct in my theory over the last sort of 10 to 20 years?
Yeah, my joke on this is Americans love their gas-guzzling cars and their ducted air conditioners. So we still have what I call trash can style heating and air systems where the fan blows out the top of the unit. It's actually news to me that you guys have never had anything like that, which is kind of crazy.
We've never had it.
That's what I cut my teeth on. That's what we only had up until probably a decade or two ago. And then, of course, mini splits being introduced into our country have led way to now we're starting to finally see companies like Mitsubishi and Daikin come out with what we call side discharge units, where the fan blows out the front, and to have conventional systems with still an outdoor unit with side discharge. That's still pretty new to our market.
Okay.
To have a ducted heating and air system.
So
that does that.
So Josh, touching on the old school way of doing things with the top blow garbage can type system, I would assume that they are pretty inefficient. Going on what you've said about gas guzzling cars, yada 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 yada. extremely inefficient, but when energy is cheap, it's irrelevant, which I completely appreciate it. What about the water side of things? Did the boiler interlink? Was the boiler for the house still doing the hot water for the home? So was it an intertwined system between the two?
It was. I mean, there are still homes that are still heated, and the hot water. We do still have customers, even in our market here in Virginia, that have boilers and things like that. I would say it's less common the further you go south in our country. I have friends in the southern part of our country who have never even seen a boiler. They wouldn't know what it looks like. But here in Virginia, we're kind of like midway, you know, so we get a little bit of both. I get a little bit of what the northern states see, and then I get a little bit of, you know, what the guys down in the south see. But I've heard stories of guys saying that they moved from one state to another, and the trade is completely different. They feel like they're a helper again. And they're starting over as an apprentice, trying to learn the trade.
That's interesting.
Is that the norm over where you guys are?
No. So I got into the industry in sort of 2006, but being trained by my senior in 2006, who was in the industry since the early 90s. If we're looking at it as a residential, you know, people's houses, it has always been splits and multi-splits. Once upon a time, there was no multi-split technology. It was fixed-speed compressors and split indoor, split outdoor. Wall units, ductless units, ceiling units. Whereas now, it's the same. But it's got a lot more electronic. There's a lot more range of equipment on the market. So you could have a unit on the wall, a unit in the loft, or, you know, the ductless systems. And you could have a varied approach. But over here, we'd never fall into that unless you're talking about a commercial where we've always had the trade-off between chillers and VRF. So touching on commercial, Josh, how is that? Are you heavily involved with commercial as a business?
No. So I have worked at companies that were, and I've dipped my toe in it a bit. But we at my heating and air company are probably 90% residential. But I do want to mention, based on what you just said, that we are, whereas you're saying you only have, you know, maybe a handful of options, we have still to this day, we still have dozens of options. So you see, you know, of course, the boilers and things like that. We have hydronic heating. We have, I have customers now on our website, the new HVAC Guide, which is a website I set up to help homeowners navigate some of this stuff. And I have customers that have something on the roof called a swamp cooler.
Okay.
And it's a unit that uses moisture or water to heat and cool the home. That it's you know, but of course there's always geothermal. There's dozens and dozens of types of systems.
So in the UK, Josh, we have got, if somebody was to build a relatively large house and budget wasn't an option, we've got this huge green agenda of efficiency and being green at the moment here. So we found that we have big geothermal in houses with boreholes and ground source heat pumps. There is a huge push at the moment for air source heat pumps, which is a conventional air conditioning unit with a plate heat exchanger doing the heating. Is that slowly hitting America?
Which are you speaking of? The geothermal?
No, mainly the air source heat pumps. So in the UK at the moment, commercially and residentially, air source heat pumps, you know, the simplest way of explaining it is, you know, for anyone not listening, is if you have a swimming pool in the UK or the States, 9 times out of 10, you will have an air source heat pump doing the heating for the water. Well, that, I'd probably say 75% of any new homes built in the UK are being supplied with an air source heat pump, mainly for planning regulations, and number 2, to reduce the carbon footprint of the UK. Is that something which is entering the American market? Here we've got the Mitsubishi Electric EcoDan and the Daikin Altherma. They're the 2 products here at the moment. Is that something which you're familiar with, or something which you're slowly starting to see? or is it something that's already been out there?
So I'm not familiar with those products, but I am familiar with those brands. And I would say, to answer your question, yes. So we're seeing, I've never seen a time in our industry like now. And I've been in the trade for a couple decades now.
Okay.
And, you know, we saw years ago here in the States where R22 refrigerant was phased out.
Mm-hmm.
We saw about 6 or 7 years ago, we saw the efficiency ratings go from a minimum, depending on what part of the country you're in, we saw efficiency ratings get raised. But right now, as we're making or recording this video, I've never seen a time where we have efficiency ratings hitting January 1st, 2023.
Okay.
So depending on what part of the country you're in, that changes. But here in Virginia and those south of us, we're going to go from a minimum of 14 SEER to a minimum of 14.3 SEER 2 is what they're calling it. And it's basically the equivalent of 15 or 16 SEER. And so they're raising those standards. At the same time, we are phasing out 410A refrigerant.
Mm-hmm.
We do not have a set in stone timeline for what day that'll just 100% flip. They're going to phase it.
Okay.
But each year, as time goes on, they're phasing down the allowance, if you will, of 410A refrigerant. And then on top of all of that, we have certain states here in our country that are taking aim at things like gas furnaces. The state of California just passed a bill that would ban those.
Damn. Okay.
And you know, I've just never seen a time like this. It's really given me a lot of content for the YouTube channel.
Yeah, for sure.
But, you know, it's just
it sounds
nuts.
like, Josh, it sounds like, so I think, correct, you know, somebody from Mitsubishi Electric, or especially Daikin, watching this may pull me up on this, but our phase out from 410A to R32 started in 2018, and as it stands, by 2025, R410A will be banned in the UK in any new installations into a commercial building. That's something that somebody refreshed my mind yesterday. At the moment, any splits or multi-splits in the UK which are sold, 9 times out of 10 is R32. R410A is almost non-existent, unless we're talking about big heat recovery VRF systems in hotels, office blocks. But now there are products out there which actually use heat recovery air conditioning system and transfers it to water, or they're looking at chillers. But I completely agree where you say about massive changes, because at the moment I feel that as a company, you have to be evolving, or what I call being ahead of the curve, because you can actually price yourself out in the market on doing something wrong. And sometimes having the knowledge before others who don't go out their way because they are set in their ways is actually a setback. What would you say, Josh? 2 years ago, I said that the immediate change that would happen in the UK would be air purification, and it was like a year later, COVID hit.
So it was air purification.
And air purification actually took off. It was, everybody wanted UV filtration and, you know, HEPA filters. Has that entered your market at all in even new splits and ductless mini splits and retrofitting? Have you had a need? You know, I'm sure you've probably done a video on this. Well, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But have people asked you them questions of additional filtration?
Yeah, we call it the IAQ, the indoor air quality sector, if you will. It's really, over the last decade, has become something that a lot of heating and air companies are starting to say, look, we're not just going to fix your air conditioner, we're going to try to improve the quality of the air you breathe in your home. And it's interesting, your last point about certain folks that are kind of getting the program and certain folks that aren't. You know, I still have people that comment on our YouTube channel that say, look, we are never going to sell an inverter system. We're never going to sell some of these indoor air quality products. A lot of these guys, they're not just not getting with the program, they simply don't believe what they're being told by whoever is saying it. And so a lot of these indoor air quality products, it seems like there are still even guys in our trade that look at it as what we call snake oil, which is just a fake product, or fake news. And it's interesting how there are still people that push back on that.
So I said probably about, I think I started the business 7 years ago, and between that first year and second year, I noticed a trend that a lot of the air conditioning companies out there, it was like a big cycle. People were in the industry for sort of like 15, 20, 25, 30 years, which exactly what you just said, are quite set in their ways. And basically, we were one of the first in the area to promote specialist wall-mounted units, and we would set up the Wi-Fi app control. And unfortunately, a lot of them same people will still refuse to set up Wi-Fi app control or offer the product to their clients. But it prices them out of the market, because who doesn't have a smartphone? And, going a bit further with that, I said probably a year and a half ago that the future of air conditioning, because I don't know if you'd agree with me with this, Josh, but I believe air conditioning is so outdated. It's such an outdated process. Mr. Carrier made it, and Elon Musk hasn't made a system to supersede everyone else yet. I'm waiting for him or Henry Dyson to do it. But basically, I've always said that control is the only way of getting things more efficient and also offering better service. So in the UK, control is becoming massive on the phones, even in commercial buildings where they want to know running costs and energy use, like per kilowatt hour. Is that something which you're now dealing with people wanting things on their phone, or is that something which has been in America for a long time?
So I don't know if it's necessarily a position of a group of folks, but I can tell you that on a personal level. So when I'm talking to someone personally, there is still this idea of, here in America, we have this idea of Big Brother always trying to, keep you down. Or
We've got it here. I'm one of those, Josh. I'm afraid. Sorry, man. Okay. But continue on.
I think it's a valid concern on certain things, especially when you see countries like Spain who are putting things in place because of their electrical grid.
What a great point.
They're putting things in place saying...
Great point.
They're saying, look, you are no longer going to be able to cool your home past this point or heat your home above this temperature. And so I have customers and I have people that comment on our YouTube channel that will say, I don't want to connect to Wi-Fi. I'm scared that there could come a point where someone else could step in and, tell me what I can and can't do. I'm willing to pay for it. And I don't want that. I don't want Big Brother, peeking in at me. And so is it valid? Is it a valid concern? In all cases, probably not. But is it something to consider in the grand scheme of things? Maybe, if it's happening in this country, is it possible that it's going to happen elsewhere?
We don't get that here, do we? It's just people want Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so Josh, just to go through this with Ben, because I'm aware of this. So, Ben, the last few months with, the Russia embargo of Ukraine, with energy costs, the Spanish government released that air conditioning would only be allowed to be used at 27 degrees and used within certain hours. Oh, right. And what Joshua just touched on is they would only be able to monitor that via Wi-Fi. So... in the UK, Josh, we can unplug our modules. Some of them are hardwired, but there's nothing stopping them cutting them out. But that's a great counter argument. It's not. I'd say 9 out of 10 of my customers want it on their phones. Are you suggesting that it's actually quite apparent where you are that people do not want Wi-Fi on their phones for the aircon? Is it a majority or is it a minority?
I think it's a generational thing here. I think that older customers are still reluctant, whereas I think people that are under the age of 40 just understand that, that this is the way things are becoming, and they're not quite as reluctant. I still have a mother who won't sign up for email because she thinks the government's going to take, you know, her groceries away.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
so...
Okay. Whereas in the UK, which I'm sure you have in the States, that we have a lot of customers that they drive a Tesla, they wear an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
They've got their heart being monitored on their Apple Watch, and they have an app for everything. And air conditioning does come under one of their maps. I'm sure you have the same in the States.
Absolutely. We have certain customers that they have the capability and want the capability even further of being able to control everything in their life with the touch of a, you know, just by picking up their smartphone.
For sure.
And
for sure.
we're getting those capabilities more and more. The interesting thing, I don't know if you guys have this or not, but the interesting thing that we're seeing a lot of manufacturers move to is the capability of them being able to also monitor certain things with the systems, or giving the contractor the ability to do so. So, you know, we have certain manufacturers have, you can set it up to where the contractor knows there's an issue and can call the customer before the customer may even know that they're having an issue.
So Josh, that's a really valid point. So Ben, this is something which isn't here in the UK, but I know it's very. We've just done an install in. I'm not going to mention brands and things because I could get into a lot of trouble here. But the app. So Josh, show every single mini split that we put in. Let's do it on a house. Has a registration. Certain manufacturers are currently creating software so the contractor, being us, can control and monitor all of our customers' aircon. You know, there is a 2-tier or 3-tier type of control.
Yeah.
But that's something which is coming.
I think we touched on that on the second episode of the podcast.
Okay.
Slightly.
Okay, so we have mentioned it before. That's going to be an interesting one. It's obviously an upsell to us, and that's how, as a contractor, it will be sold that you can sell this service to your customers so they can, you know, save on the call out and you can monitor before something happens. But so that's something that's active at the moment. You can sell that to your current customers.
Yeah, no, we have multiple manufacturers offering something similar to that. Some of them are offering it for free, and then we have several who, as you said, it's an upsell. And some of the contractors build it into their pricing when they're installing the equipment. We do not. So, you know,
Josh, what's your view?
I can think of.
Josh, what's your view on it? As in, if it's been there for a while, what are the positives? I think we know what the positives are, but have you got a view on it which is sort of tinged with the negative or the positive, or is it something that if you're asked you'll do?
Me personally, I'm never going to have the size of my company currently, we have 8 employees.
Okay.
I don't have the manpower, if you will, to have someone keep an eye on that. You know, we have enough customers that call in every day saying, hey, I'm actually having an issue. Can you come take care of us?
Okay.
That said, I will say that especially with some of the more complicated heating and air systems, you know, whether it be an inverter or some sort of, you know, something with sensors and something with, you know, different measurements that the system can read out information and give you. It is nice having technical support if you have someone on the other end being able to see what you're seeing real time. And we have dealt with that a few times with some of the upper end products, if you will, where they can dial in and see exactly what I'm seeing real time and be able to say, oh, well, you know, maybe we can adjust the airflow, or maybe we can, you know, maybe the sensor is bad from what I'm seeing here.
For sure. Touching on technical support. So we did a poll, the top two market leaders in the UK, Mitsubishi Electric and Daikin. We did a poll on LinkedIn and we did a podcast on it, episode 2. And one of the, there was a lot of comments, you know, some plus for some were against them. The big thing I'm an engineer, Josh. I was an engineer when I started. I'm a service engineer, although I can install. And one of the things that is always big for me is technical support. And as the UK market has grown and there has been a change in the industry, there has been a lack of support, not just from the main two, but people feel that the support isn't there. And one thing that I've always said, and I always stand belief on, is that if you're in a fire and it's a Friday afternoon and you want to go home, you want people around you or people on the end of the phone that will get you out of that fire. How big is technical support in America or for yourself with not just with Mitzi Electric and Daikin, but some of the others? Has there been a change over the past few years where they suffer and it gets really bad and then they get good? I know you said you've been in aircon for the 2 decades now. Have you noticed a change in different brands where they get good, they grow, after support fails, or is it completely different in America where technical support is everything and that supersedes sales?
So I think there's a lot of ways I can answer this because there's a lot of moving parts. But the main thing I will say is I think, especially as time moves on and you're starting to see some of these newer products come out, you're going to see more folks relying, more technicians as they're learning the trade, especially relying on technical support. And it's one of my 10-second commercials, if you will, when I'm telling folks, because one of the questions I get all the time, we don't have a big 2 here in America. I would say we have a big 7.
Okay, who are they,
so
Josh?
Depending on what city. Well, just to rattle off a few, Daikin is probably the number 1 because they own Goodman and Amana. They're the number 1 selling manufacturer here. But we also have Trane and American Standard.
Okay.
We have Carrier and Bryant and their line of brands. We have other brands like Lennox, Rheem, York.
Okay. And then just to go off
that's
that,
just to name a few.
Just to go off that, I've seen quite a few marketing props from Mitsubishi Electric. It seems like Mitsubishi Electric have teamed up with Trane in the States. Is that correct?
Yeah, so here in the States, Mitsubishi has not tried to be something they're not. They have not said, oh, well, we're going to offer furnaces now. Okay. So what they did instead was partner with Trane. And we've seen multiple brands do that. We've seen Fujitsu pair up with Rheem. We've seen, of course, Mitsubishi and Trane. We've seen multiple brands have partnerships like that. And what I'll say about all this is, one of the questions I get all the time is, hey, what's the best brand? What's the Rolls Royce or what's the Mercedes of the industry? And my answer is there is no answer to that because it depends on what city you're in. It depends on the contractors in your area. It depends on the suppliers. A lot to answer your question about the technical support. A lot of times it's the suppliers that are in charge of that. So the manufacturer or brand will say, hey, if you want us to let you sell our stuff, well, then you need to have someone on staff that's going to be the technical support for the folks in your area.
Okay.
And that's not the case for all brands, but it's one of the reasons I always say there's no one brand that's best in every market because every market is different. The people that are there, the infrastructure that's there, and and you see that with the technical support as well. It's either great or suffers based on those the type of support they have.
So Josh, is the model in America, because it was like that heavily in the UK and it still is with some brands, and it's what we call the manufacturer distributor model, and that's where in the UK now certain brands, some of the top brands, they deal directly with clients or contractors. And you can still buy their products from wholesalers, but you can deal and buy from them direct, and the after support is. Whereas some of the other smaller brands, which are still big, but they're not the market leaders, you have to buy from their distributors, and the technical support is with their distributors. Is that your model, or is your model you can deal with the manufacturers themselves?
It's every city is different. So there are cities that you have the ability to deal directly. And I'll give you a good example. I'm in the state of Virginia, and where I'm located in the state, to purchase certain brands, you have to deal directly with a distributor, a middleman.
Okay.
But if I were to go one state north to Maryland, I could buy directly from the manufacturer.
For sure.
And it depends on which brand. I mean, that varies per brand.
Touching on what you've said as well with people with the organisation, with us on the sales side of thing, a few people commented on this on the Daikin versus Mitzi post, and there was so much contradictions between the two. You had some people not happy with one brand because they can never get hold of somebody. The following is there's no support. With me, and it's really interesting because if you've got a bad product and the customer service is fantastic, you will sell your average product. Yeah. Whereas if you've got a great product and your account manager is letting you down, you're actually doing the big brand out of a significant sale. Is that something that, I'm sure you've had it, in your time with Griffin Air, that you've dealt with people and you've been disappointed because you've wanted to start using a certain product and you've either not had enough interest from the supplier or the service isn't there?
Yeah, it's funny because I will promote certain products that we sell here, and we'll have folks reach out to us and say, I can't find a single soul in my, 100-mile radius where I live that even sells the product or brand that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of that for sure. And it plays a big role, in my opinion, on who a contractor should be selling. It's one of the reasons why when folks ask me, hey, what's the best heating and air brand? My response to them is, you're asking the wrong question. The answer to your question should be, hey, who's the best contractor in my area, or who's the one I should be using, and what's the brand that they like and have signed on and will stand behind? Because the answer to your question is relative to everyone's experience. I always call it Ford or Chevrolet here in America. You might like Ford and I might like Chevrolet, and it's really only because of our personal experiences on why we do or don't like what we like.
For sure. Touching on something that we mentioned earlier about splits and mini splits, and air purification. So I'd say 60% of the wall-mounted market at the moment in houses have built-in air purification. Are your wall-mounted ranges in your properties now including additional features, meaning air purification, even sensors which switch the unit off if rooms aren't occupied? Has that entered your market yet?
Not heavily, especially not with mini splits. So one of the things that we will sometimes do with our mini splits is offer some of those extras, whether it be ultraviolet light or ionizers, things that will help clean that air in one way, shape, or form. But we have not seen, I have not seen a mini split yet that I can think of that will operate differently based on the whether the room's occupied or not. Now we do have systems that can sense someone in the room and split the air and change based on someone being in front of the system, but I have not heard any sort of, unless you're talking about technologies like geofencing where the system knows whether or not you're home. But again, I'm not aware of any mini splits, and again, I could be wrong, but okay. I'm just not aware of any that will operate differently.
And in regards to you not being aware of that, obviously you're obviously quite in depth into the industry, which is great. And I think there's a youth side of that, and it's a bit like us, where you kind of want to sort of not do things differently, go against the wheel, learn, and challenge those and learn from those that we're wrong in our conversations. How would you know about a new product? Because this is something which bugs the hell out of me. And that's finding out there is a product on the market which can make our lives easier, someone's life better, a value-add product, and not knowing about it. Because at the moment, the only real way that we can find out about it is usually by a MailChimp email, and a few of the brands have launched campaigns and launched products, but they're not really getting their points across. Is it something you have a lot of shows in America where people show these new products, or is it by chance, or is it by you Googling? How do you find out about a new product as such?
I love this question because I'm going to give you two answers if that's okay. The first answer is we do have trade shows and things like that. I do think that there is an element of you know, our sales reps or suppliers telling us of things that are coming out, and sometimes if you don't sell a certain product, it's one of the things I'll say on my YouTube channel. Hey, if you know something I don't know, please share. Because if you're selling, say, you know, brand X and I don't sell it, you know, maybe you know something I don't. So as far as the chain of events before we're told about things, that's usually how it works. But I think the essence of here in America, the answer to this question is there is a big disconnect, in my opinion, between how things used to be done and how things could be done today. And what I mean by that is there are heating and air manufacturers that are still, the way they advertise their products is they have co-op dollars, or they'll have some sort of tactics that they roll out to their contractors, and it's up to the contractors in a specific area to handle the worldwide message of how great this product is to their local customers. And they'll have little spiffs or perks or co-op dollars that the contractor can take advantage of, you know, being able to do a radio commercial or TV ad or whatever it is that contractor wants to do with that, you know, ability of advertising. But I went to a meeting, you know, I was invited to tour a factory with a bunch of other contractors for a brand years ago. And I told them at the end of their, you know, weekend, I said, I have a bigger presence on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube than you do. And you're $1 billion corporation.
Damn.
So, you know, there's this gigantic disconnect with heating and air manufacturers that are still doing things the same way. And that's, I think that they're missing an opportunity there. I think that if one brand was to say to the market, if they were to say in UK or US, hey, we're the best for these reasons, and put some money behind it and advertise for whatever reason they think they're the best. And if you don't have a contractor in your area that's pushing this brand, the contractors are the problem. You need to be telling your contractors, go to us and I want these products in my house. But that's just not how things are done. And I think they're missing the boat. I think they're missing the boat with guys like you and me. Guys in UK, Mitsubishi and Daikin should be calling you tomorrow and saying, man, I love what you're doing. You're spreading good messages. You're trying to get information out there. What can we do to partner with you to tell folks why they should be selecting us for for this reason or not? And they're just not doing that.
It's amazing to me. You've absolutely hit the nail on the head. Yeah. It's, you know what? There are some amazing products out there, and one of your first points about yeah, you're right. They get some kind of coupons. We get the same thing. If you buy products, you get coupons, and you can use it for advertising to advertise products. And it's usually a type of marketing or uniform. It's something that's been going on for the last 15, 20 years in the UK. For us, we have very little uniform with any brand on, just because of my sort of, you know, right-wing approach of nobody owns us. We're never affiliated to 1 or 2 or 3 brands, even though we only put certain products in that are trusted, going through the points we mentioned earlier. But one of the most frustrating things for us is when there is a new product on the market, if something is marketed by the brand, it's just put out there. There is nothing behind it.
It's not a campaign. It's just like a one throw out and see what catches sort of thing.
It's like waking up in the morning and say, listen, guys, I got up at 8 o'clock and I had my breakfast. That's it. Yeah. No one said, what have I had for breakfast? No. There's no explanation of breakfast, how I felt, how I'm going to benefit others throughout the day. It just ends there. Some of the brands are getting better, but there is a huge disconnect. And we have no British air conditioning brands. And it's amazing. If there was an air conditioning brand and they just said, we do cheap air conditioning and we'll give you a good warranty, and they spread the message tenfold, social media, and approaching contractors saying we'll do the best we can to uphold our service warranties, technical support, that would go further than sometimes me putting a product in and I have no idea what features the product's got, and it's just because that's the unit they've got into stock. And you know what? That's where yourself, Josh, and myself, we have an edge as business owners and with our employees over the competition because we care. We're starting to live in a careless society, and unfortunately, sometimes that's led by, you know, self-awareness and education. So where I look at small air conditioning businesses where perhaps I was 7 to 6 years ago, they're really going to struggle because they're not up to date with the latest products. But we've kind of sat ourselves in a position to say, well, listen, we want to know what's out there and we want to tell people about it. You know, tell us. Maybe someone listening will take notes from this. And I'm interested to know, Josh. I've got 2 points which could help. One of them I've noted down as like a road show. Some of the manufacturers do heating road shows, but you know, having
Daikin's done a few I've seen on their LinkedIn. They've been doing it all across the country.
For heating.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd agree that having a great big truck and just dropping by anonymously at random contractors' work premises would be one way of explaining products. Just to wrap this up, Josh, there was something that we should have started on, but let's end on this, okay? What do you love about air conditioning and the industry and being an engineer?
So I did not start out in the HVAC industry. I went to school to be an electrician.
Okay.
And I did electrical for a number of years, and then I did plumbing after that.
Okay.
And then I ended up at a company that did all three.
Okay.
And it was the first time that I found a trade, if you will, that, in my opinion, and you may disagree with this, but I think that there are certain parts of, whether it's the electrical or plumbing trades or any trade for that matter, whether it's painting a house, that there are certainly skills and you know, things that you have to be good at to be able to be in that trade. I felt like heating and air was above that. Like heating and air was the PhD, if you will.
Yeah,
you had to bring, you had to know more to be good at it. And so one example of that is that on any given day, I'm reading electrical schematics. I'm plumbing in the drain that goes to the heating and air system. And I'm also on the next job trying to figure out why the refrigerant flow isn't what it should be, or why the pressures are, you know, the chemistry of the system, if you will. So I think that, you know, I'm sure there are electricians out there that would want to fight me on this, but you have to have a few more brain cells to do what we do.
Josh, I never forget my teacher that taught me everything, and he said to me once that you do realise us fridge guys, we're educated plumbers. The plumbers are the not-educated ones. and me saying that, the plumbers are probably going to come after me for saying that. But no, I agree with everything completely. When I firmly believe, you know, biased, air conditioning is the best trade to get into. I love it. It is the only trade which touches on drainage, pressures, refrigeration, electronic, and it's getting big on the electronic. Okay, you're not the master electrician and you're not the master plumber, but you have got a varied amount, and every day is a school day. I'm sure you would agree.
Absolutely. We see new things every day, and these new things coming out certainly add to that. So,
and then the complete opposite question: what do you hate about AC and being an engineer? What don't you know? Probably not so much on what we've touched on today, but what do you dislike about it?
Shoot. I mean, it's all.
I'll start if you want. I'll start if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's working in the heat, working in a loft, getting hot is never great. Usually, it's very hard to looking at faults, and when things don't work, it is the most frustrating trade. Because with water, if there is a lack of water to a sink or a toilet, it's quite easy to say, listen, you have a problem, there is no water. But as you know, with an air conditioning unit, if an inverter compressor fails, it's either because it's failed and it's taken the inverter PCB out, in the UK, we would always change both anyway, but then explaining to the client why we need to change both and what the risks are. And that it can be the most frustrating thing ever, even with a condensation pump that's failed within 3 years because the system is used 24/7. It's the frustration in explaining to the customer or to the end user how our crazy bit of kit works. Is there anything that you can add to that, or any other frustrations?
I think that's a great point. I would probably add that a lot of the misinformation out there, I think it's great what you guys are doing, and it's part of the things that part of our mission, if you will, with some of the things that I'm working on is trying to fix some of that misinformation out there. I do want to take a minute to say that if anybody sees this in the UK, find these guys. You guys don't have to do what you are doing right now. You don't have to try to make the industry better and do a podcast, but you're doing your part. So if you guys are local to these folks, if you're calling anyone else, you're nuts. You need to call these guys and make sure you're having your air conditioning installed by these guys, because
Josh, thank you so much, Josh.
Very noble.
Josh, thank you so much. I'd also flip that and say the reality is, Josh, what you're doing with your HVAC guide, I'm sure is an extension of how you run the business, and I'm sure your engineers watching your guides and what you're doing will set you apart from the rest in the competition. And I think, installing an air conditioning system in America or where you're based, the value which no one else will offer is you being able to offer them the YouTube channel and the care and compassion in explaining what you're doing. And I think what you're doing and what we're doing, forget selling directly to customers. There are a lot of engineers out there which have had questions which you've explained and I've explained, and questions that we still need to bring up. Mm. And if we're being followed, we're kind of making the world a better place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate you guys having me on, and maybe in the future we'll get to have some more fun conversations.
For sure. We'll load the next one up for sure. Thank you so much, Josh. Ben, is there anything you need to add?
I'll link everything in the bio. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Have a great week.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. All the best.
See you later.
Thank you.